than just benefits. It's rights that they're attacking. It's more than just rights.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez.
Well, New York Republican Congressman Peter King, chair of the House Committee on Homeland Security, held a controversial hearing yesterday on what he calls the radicalization of the American Muslim community. Critics described the hearings as a modern-day form of McCarthyism designed to stoke fear against American Muslims. King refused calls to broaden the hearing to examine right-wing militias or any non-Muslim groups. He also did not invite any federal law enforcement officials to testify on the nature and extent of the threat that he was examining. Instead, the hearing included testimony from the families of two young men who blamed the Islamic community for recruiting them to terrorism, as well as a Muslim Arizona doctor who was featured in a film that claims the fifth column of Muslim extremists have infiltrated America with the intent of establishing a theocratic state. With photos of the burning World Trade Center and the Pentagon on display, King opened the hearing by condemning criticism of his effort as political correctness.
Today's hearing will be the first in a series of hearings dealing with the critical issue of the radicalization of Muslim Americans. I am well aware that the announcement of these hearings has generated considerable controversy and opposition. Some of this opposition, such as my colleague in France, Mr. Ellison, Ms. Pasquale, has been measured and thoughtful. Other opposition, both from special interest groups and the media, has ranged from disbelief to paroxysms of rage and hysteria. Let me make it clear today that I remain convinced that these hearings must go forward, and they will. To back down would be a craven surrender to political correctness and an abdication of what I believe to be the main responsibility of this committee, to protect America from a terrorist attack. Despite what passes for conventional wisdom in certain circles, there is nothing radical or un-American in holding these hearings. Indeed, congressional investigation of Muslim American radicalization is the logical response to the repeated and urgent warnings which the Obama administration has been making in recent months. This committee cannot live in denial, which is what some of us would do when they suggest that this hearing dilute its focus by investigating threats unrelated to al-Qaeda. The Department of Homeland Security and this committee were formed in response to the al-Qaeda attacks of September 11th. There is no equivalency of threat between al-Qaeda and neo-Nazis, environmental extremists, or other isolated madmen. Only al-Qaeda and its Islamist affiliates in this country are part of an international threat to our nation. Indeed, by the Justice Department's own record, not one terror-related case in the last 2 years involved neo-Nazis, environmental extremists, militias, or anti-war groups. As we approach the 10-year anniversary of the September 11th attacks, we cannot allow the memory of that tragic day to fade away. We must remember that in the days following the attack, we were all united in our dedication to fight back against al-Qaeda and its ideology. Today, we must be fully aware that homegrown radicalization is part of al-Qaeda's strategy to continue attacking the United States.
Long Island Congressmember Peter King, chair of the House Committee on Homeland Security, opening yesterday's hearing on what he called the radicalization of the American Muslim community. Among the first to testify was Congressmember Keith Ellison, a Minnesota Democrat who's the first Muslim elected to Congress.
Throughout human history, individuals from all communities and faiths have used religion and political ideology to justify violence. Let's just think about the KKK, America's oldest terrorist organization, the Oklahoma City bombing, the shooting at the Holocaust Museum by James von Braun, and bombings at Planned Parenthood clinics. Did Congress focus on the ethnic group or religion of these agents of violence as a matter of public policy? The answer is no. Stoking fears about an entire group for political agenda is not new in American history. During World War II, the United States government interned the Japanese Americans and spied on German Americans. During John F. Kennedy's presidential campaign, his opponents portrayed his portrayed a dire future for an America with a Catholic president. We now view these events of our past as a breach of our treasured American values. As leaders, we need to be rigorous about our analysis of violent extremism. Our responsibility includes doing no harm. I am concerned that the focus of today's hearing may increase suspicion of the Muslim American community, ultimately making us all a little less safe. We have seen the consequences of anti-Muslim sentiment, from backlash against Park 51 Muslim Community Center to the hostilities against the Islamic Center in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, to a threatened Quran burning in Gainesville, Florida. Zoning boards in communities like DuPage, Illinois, are denying permits to build mosques. At the height of the Park 51 controversy, a man asked a cabbie whether he was a Muslim. When the cabbie said, "Assalamu alaikum," which means peace be unto you, the individual stabbed him. Let me close with a true story, but remember that it's only one of many American stories that could be told. Mohammed Salman Hamdani was a 23-year-old paramedic, a New York City police cadet, and Muslim American. He was one of those brave first responders who tragically lost his life in 9/11 terrorist attacks almost a decade ago. As the New York Times eulogized, he wanted to be seen as an all-American kid. He wore number 79 on the high school football team at Bayside, Queens, where he lived. He was called Sal by his friends. He became a research assistant at the Rockefeller University and drove an ambulance part-time. One Christmas, he sang Handel's Messiah in Queens. He saw all of the Star Wars movies, and it's well known that his new Honda was the one that read with the Young Jedi license plates. Mr. Hamdani bravely sacrificed his life to try to help others on 9/11. After the tragedy, some people tried to smear his character solely because of his Islamic faith. Some people spread false rumors and speculated that he was in league with the attackers because he was a Muslim. But it was only when his remains were identified that these lies were exposed. Mohammed Salman Hamdani was a fellow American who gave his life for other Americans. His life should not be identified as just a member of an ethnic group or just a member of a religion, but as an American who gave everything for his fellow Americans.
Emotional testimony from Congressman Keith Ellison, Minnesota Democrat, the first Muslim elected to Congress, telling the story of Mohammed Salman Hamdani, who died on 9/11 in the attacks on the World Trade Center. He was 23 years old. Sitting behind Congressman Ellison at the hearing was Salman's mother, Talat Hamdani. She joins us in the studio today. Welcome to Democracy Now! It's very good to have you, Talat.
Thank you.
So you were attending this hearing before you even knew Congressman Ellison would raise the story of your son.
Yes, the moment I discovered that the hearings will be held, I decided I have to go. And I got 2 seats from my Congressman Tim Bishop, and he was I'm really grateful, instrumental in getting me those 2 seats. And Keith Ellison, you know, I had no clue that he will be, you know, talking about Salman. But he had called me the night before, I guess, when he had discovered that, you know, I am attending the hearings to take permission to mention Salman. And I said, fine, it will be an honor.
Well, you didn't expect that he would present such a long presentation on the role of your son.
Yes, I thought he would just mention like he did at the beginning, and that's what was. I thought that would be it.
What is so astounding about your son is the fact that he wasn't even in the area. He rushed to the area to help people.
Voluntarily.
And that is where he died. I remember at the time, afterwards, the New York Post headline that screamed, "Missing or hiding. Mystery of NYPD cadet from Pakistan." And it went on to say, Hamdani was last seen, Quran in hand, leaving his Bayside, Queens home for his job as a research assistant at Rockefeller University. But he never made it to work, the New York Post wrote, and vilified him.
They did, and the paper went on to say that at 11 a.m. he was seen at the Midtown Tunnel, and to look for him not under the rubble, but he's hiding. You know, they slandered the, you know, character assassination. You know, I mean, a person gives his life.
You went with your husband, your late husband, who I had the good fortune to meet a year after the 9/11 attacks, when you both walked quietly down to 9/11 on the anniversary. And you went to Mecca to pray. Back here at home, the press was all outside your door. Had they found the 9/11 bomber, was the idea.
Yes, that was, now I realized it. At that time, I wasn't here, but my sister and my 85-year-old mom was there, and they tell us that they were all those 3 cars. So I just asked her, she said, like, for 3 days they were parked out there.
From villain to hero, ultimately at your son's funeral, the mayor spoke, the police commissioner spoke, and he is named in the USA Patriot Act?
For his heroism as a 23-year-old Pakistani-American of, 23-year-old American of Pakistani descent who went down there to help and is missing now. So at that time when the Patriot Act was introduced, October 4th, 2001, it was missing because he was missing at that moment. And now he's dead. The Congress needs to honor him.
And when you sat there in the hearing yesterday and saw Congressman King call some families there who were blaming the Muslim community for recruiting their sons into extremist actions, obviously the congressman never thought to ask you to speak at the hearing.
Congressman King, he knows me. I'm a member of September 11th Families for Peaceful Tomorrows, and we had been asking him to give us a meeting for 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, finally, the office said, okay, we'll give you a meeting in D.C. So we traveled, 3 members, although Mr. King lives in New York, we are in New York, all 3 New Yorkers. We traveled from New York to D.C. to meet him for February 28th. And what does he do? As we walk into his office, he's walking out to another meeting. So we told the aide, Dina, that we are willing to, we've come all the way here. We'll wait 1 hour, 2 hours, 5 hours, whatever it takes, we'll wait. And she said, no, there's no way that you can have a meeting with him. So this is who this congressperson is. I mean, we traveled, victims, you know, we lost our children. And he does not have the courage to sit down and talk.
Among the fiercest critics at the hearing was Texas Democrat Sheila Jackson Lee. This is some of what she had to say.
And I'm reminded of someone, proverb now quoted by Sheila Jackson Lee, cleaning a dirty kitchen. You can't clean it with dirty water. There are no redeeming factual information that we will receive today that can add to the abhorrence that all of us have on terrorism in the United States of America. We don't disrespect the witnesses, at least I do not. But you see, it has already been tainted, this hearing. There are no loud signs of reasoning that are coming through this hearing. The reason is because it has already been classified as an effort to demonize and to castigate a whole broad base of human beings. I cannot stand for that.